Hello and welcome to a brand new Coronation Overreaction, this time the Maryland edition. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko. That is my good friend and broadcast buddy, Haas Reuter. And we were a little sad. We were a little taken aback, disappointed, Haas, in the events that occurred this past Saturday. Military Appreciation Day. Everything was right. Nebraska. I mean, the final score 13-10 as Maryland walks it off on a field goal as time expires. I'll tell you this: Husker quarterbacks went 3 for 3. 3 quarterbacks got in. 3 quarterbacks threw interceptions. It was not the statistic you wanted to see. It was not the outcome we hoped or anticipated. We have to rethink, and by we, I mostly mean me, rethink the – I'm trying to figure out how to – because I get that they're kids, and I'm almost twice their age. I don't say necessarily talent, maybe, or like, I don't know. Talent, competency, it's just decision-making. It's all right there, and it's all – I don't know. Hi, welcome to the show.
I was thinking when you opened it up, I was thinking about just trying to sum it up. And the only thing that came to mind was Al Pacino in Any Given Sunday when he starts his great speech where he just goes, I don't know what to say, really. That's my Al Pacino impersonation.
That's not bad. Can you give me a ooh-ah?
Ooh-ah. Mr. Sims doesn't want it. Scent of a Woman is one of my all-time favorite movies. So nicely done, Greg. But no, like I have long said that Nebraska football is the Chicago Cubs of college football.
Oh, man.
And so with that being said, just like the Cubs, the laws of the universe cease to exist when it comes to Husker football. Murphy's Law, anything that can happen will happen. That might be the only one that exists, and not in a good way, because at some point you think, oh, something good will happen at some point. And it doesn't. You got, 3 quarterbacks complete the trifecta. That's some sort of unholy triumvirate right there. And then on top of that, it's just more gut-wrenching losses right at the final buzzer.
Yeah.
And there's a laundry list of things to go into these losses. Offensively, quarterback play is the number one issue, especially when you look at it from the standpoint that the offensive line's getting better. Emmett Johnson's emerging at running back. The young receivers are a work in progress, but they are getting better. We'll get to the last play, the interception, and how those receivers, what happened there. We'll spend some time on that. But really, that quarterback position is just a confluence of factors, like what Rule was saying earlier today in his press conference. You're talking about, you got some issues with, a guy's got, a case of the yips, even though we don't say the Y word, according to Greg. You got another guy who, he really didn't get much training. He didn't really get much development and instruction under previous staffs. I mean, I think that the story is starting to make the rounds now that Whipple told Harburg to not even show up to quarterback meetings last year. Also, he was not on the travel roster to Iowa City last year when we upset Iowa on Black Friday. I mean, the guy that for the first time in his career, he's actually getting coached. And while he just so happens to be getting coached by an offensive coordinator who's not a quarterback's coach by trade, he's a tight ends coach. And, I think it goes back to when Rule got hired. It wasn't initially the design for Satterfield to be the QB's coach. He was going to be OC tight ends coach. And we were trying to get Jake Peets from the Los Angeles Rams staff, guy who played for Callahan at Nebraska, guy who coached quarterbacks for Rule at Carolina in 2020. And at the last second, Peets decided to stay in LA, or so the story goes. But I think that is one of the issues that we're looking at. I think Satterfield is coaching his ass off with play calling and scheming up runs and scheming guys open in the passing game. But I think like that there might be a little bit of an issue with the coaching of the quarterback. So even though I know Rule said that nobody's going to get fired, in the offseason, I'm glad that he said that because I think Satterfield's going to have a really freaking good offense in year 2. But I do think that you'll see us add a quarterbacks coach, like a full-time quarterbacks coach, and just leave Sat to be the offensive coordinator at that point.
I don't think anybody would be opposed to that. I want to circle back to something you mentioned there a moment ago of the amount of faith and trust that this coaching staff put in Heinrich Haarberg when he was what was it, the Minnesota game or the Colorado game? He was lining up as a tight end.
Minnesota, yeah.
Minnesota. I mean, early on there, it was not looking like he would be utilized as a quarterback at Nebraska. And then Jeff Sims gets hurt there in the tail end of the Colorado game. And so you have to rely on the big, homegrown kid from Kearney. But it's to what you said. Whipple had no confidence in him and gave him no time. This coaching staff believed in him enough that even when Jeff Sims was cleared to play, it was still Heinrich Haarberg's team, And again, if Northern Illinois or Louisiana Tech if those game positions on the schedule are switched or flipped with the Colorado and the Minnesota, maybe Jeff Sims finds a routine early and doesn't get hurt, and maybe we can what if to death. We've what ifed Nebraska football to death as it is. But
you bring up a really good point. I think with Jeff Sims, it's a psychological case study at this point, and even though he led the country in turnovers when he was at Georgia Tech, he played at a higher level than what he's shown at Nebraska. It wasn't, total meltdown, when he was at Georgia Tech. So he's just got a case of the yips. And all things being equal, and like I was talking to you before we started recording, I watched the game with some friends over the weekend. A lot of people are in favor of Heinrich Haarberg, and I was one of the lone dissenters in the room. I think there was one other person who was more like, when we switched to Jeff Sims, thought that Sims was better than Haarberg, not necessarily in his performance, but just overall ability. And it's one of those things where it's like Sims gives you more in the passing game. And so as a quarterback, like when you're looking at the quarterback position and evaluating the quarterback position, you're naturally going to gravitate to who gives you more in the passing game. Haarberg gives you more in the running game, and I think the team has overall more confidence in Haarberg than it does Sims. And I think Haarberg kind of plays with more confidence than Sims is right now. So it's just a really messy situation with the quarterbacks. I mean, I've never seen this before in college football for a team just to be this defunct at the quarterback position. And it's a case where I think Purdy at this point grew in his confidence on that last drive, 95 yards before the interception. So it's going to be interesting to see where we're at moving forward these next 2 weeks. I think that in terms of play calling, I think that Purdy gives you a little bit more of the ability to hit some quick game in the passing game, slants, flats, hitches, just stuff based on pre-snap alignment where the defense, isn't covering somebody very tightly. You just take the snap, turn, throw. So maybe that adds a dimension to the offense that we've been missing this year.
I want to discuss, not argue. I think that Sims, despite the fact that, yes, he did have 2 interceptions compared to Haarberg's 1, he also had more opportunities. Let's face it. Heinrich finished the game in limited time before the ankle or foot sprain, 1 for 5, 0 yards. He was sacked and he had the interception. Sims came in, not great by any measure, but 8 of 13 for 62 yards, 2 picks, but a little more zip on the ball with Jeff Sims. I'll say this. because I know you said that maybe you felt that Heinrich gave a bit more of an advantage in the running game.
I know where
but
you're going, and I actually agree with you in the context of this game.
I felt two different runners. I feel Heinrichs. He's the kid who's going to lower the shoulder. More often than not, we've seen that this season. I think he's only slid once, maybe twice. He's going to lower the shoulder and see what kind of pain and devastation that he can bring upon a defender. I think Sims has better straight line speed, and so it's very 6 of 1, half does it. I understand
who sucks
why.
less, in other words.
I understand why Rule and Satterfield have gone with Harburg as long as they did, because I bet in practice it was 1A and 1B. I mean, they are, while they're built different, they are very similar. And again, to your point, it's who's gonna perform better in practice, and to use your words, who's gonna suck less on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where it's kind of, the lesser of two evils, I suppose. Who mitigates the mistakes, who minimizes the mistakes and gives you the opportunity to at least play as close to mistake-free football as we can, which makes the turnovers all the more frustrating because the penalties have largely been addressed. We've had 2 penalties the past 2 games.
Yep.
But these turnovers, I mean, we're just melting down like a bad nuclear reactor. I mean, it's, just unprecedented to be turning the football over this much. And so at this point with the quarterback position, you got to look at the small things on, do they do things well procedurally, get you in and out of the huddle without getting a delay of game penalty? We had issues with that on Saturday that cost us, I think cost us late in the game, because we didn't have any timeouts really to use. I mean, for the first time this year, I felt like Rule got outcoached. Like, I'm not going to talk about Michigan. I'm not going to talk about Colorado either, because those are 2 outliers. But for the first time, I felt like he really got outcoached in terms of the overall game management. I felt like we should have settled for field goals more on 4th down. I know that the wind was swirling, but it's like we've seen kickers before, make field goals in a swirling wind, and Tristan Alvano against Purdue, 55 yards in that wind on a much windier straight line day in Lincoln. And then on top of that, I mean, it's fairly obvious, and I don't really want to, talk about this soon, but, maybe you run the ball on that 3rd down from the 5 with 3:41 left, and you protect the 3 points that you pretty much have in hand at that point.
Right.
So I really feel like, in a sense, we didn't play great complementary football on Saturday. Defense did everything that it could, once again, to go and win that game for us. And yet I was sitting there feeling like we weren't playing all that great again, because of the fact that we're starting to stay a little bit more conservative in our defensive play calling, trying to keep things in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at it, Maryland's scoreless on God, how many straight possessions, it was, a great performance. So I don't know, like, college football is a weird game, but we really, again, had every opportunity to be up 28-0 before halftime in that game. If we had a semblance of an offense, a normal offense, I'm not even talking about a high-powered one, but if you gave us even like Northwestern or Illinois' offense, we're putting teams away. I mean, it is absurd in today's college football with the rule changes for time now. Clock doesn't stop on 1st down outside of 2 minutes. It is absurd that when you maybe get 10 possessions in a game, that you're looking at giving away half of those possessions.
Right.
It's like, and fuck, man, like, we probably win just if those 5 turnovers are just ends and those end in punts.
The way our defense plays.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't mean to sound like I'm super down on the team, because I'm not. Like, I still think that this team has a better, a good chance to go up to Madison and win for the first time, especially when you look at how poor Wisconsin's playing. But at the same time, man, like, it is discouraging to see mistake after mistake, and it just becomes endemic to the program. It's like a virus within the program. And, Bill Bush on Big Red Wrap Up the other night, or last week after the Michigan State game, he talked about how, turnovers can really become tricky and become pervasive to the entire team. And you can coach ball security. You can drill that stuff over and over and over again. But these things kind of take on a life of their own after a while.
I suppose let's get to it. The third play, or the third call play. Let me try that again. I suppose we should get to it. The third down play call there towards the end.
Yeah.
Chuba Purdy moved the ball well. Really.
Emmett Johnson showed some of the best burst as a running back that we've seen in a long fucking time. Sorry for the family listeners out there.
If you protect the lead and you kick a field goal, you're in a better spot. Obviously, points are always better. What do you think it was? Arrogance? I mean, like, what? You're not in the coach's room. You're not in the locker room. You're not on the sideline. What? It wasn't Pete Carroll in the Super Bowl arrogant. I know that much, but I don't know. I just don't know. Either way, if you run to the, I believe the long side of the field, the near side of the field anyway, you're setting yourself up to have a very short field goal with the ball relatively centered. If you get stopped, if you put it in the end zone, you're almost assured of victory. I just don't know why you throw to the short side of the field there.
Well, the way I see it, because I just got done talking about protecting a lead, so I'm just going to delve into the play. And from a play calling standpoint, if you're going to throw there, that is an excellent play call. It's a 7, corner route's the 7 route on the route tree, 7 double under. So the inside receiver, Billy Kemp, he's running the 7 route. You got Malachi Coleman, I believe, Jalen Lloyd, maybe. I don't know who the number 2 receiver was. I can't remember right off the top of my head. They're running a couple of double in routes underneath that. So Rule talked about it in his press conference too, where if that is man-to-man, you're throwing that corner route and it's away from the post safety. So it's either an incompletion or it's a completion. Like, there's not really a chance to get that picked off. But they kind of were in a little bit of a coverage shell, and they were in more of a quarters coverage than a man. It looked like man, but it morphed into quarters after the snap. So underneath, you got, physical corner on Malachi Coleman as the number 1 receiver in the alignment, and he's trying to run that in route. And he gets jammed at the line of scrimmage, and then he never recovers and gets across the defender's face. And that's where the ball had to go against kind of a matchup quarter zone. And so it's kind of more of a case of youth and inexperience at the receiver position than it is anything with Chuba Purdy or, it being such a travesty of a play calling issue. Like, I like the idea. If you are going to throw there, that is the right idea. What's absurd about it is a 3-man concept like that to the boundary, short side of the field, results in an interception on a similar concept as Jeff Sims' interception in the red zone against Minnesota. Against Minnesota, it was a snag concept. So you got the corner, you got a flat route, and then you got a snag underneath. Just kind of a slant and then a sit down, And so what ends up happening there is he forces the corner route when the snag is wide open. And then on this one, we kind of force, out of necessity because of how coverage changed, kind of force the in route when the corner, was a little bit more open. So it's just, I don't really care for the 3-man concept right there to the short side of the field. I think you need to have a little bit more space. I think all things being equal, the way the tenor of that game had gone, I would have just centered the ball in the field and kicked the field goal. I'm, and you know me well enough, Greg, I'm not the world's biggest armchair offensive coordinator. I don't sit here going, what if, I'll analyze it. I'll sit in an armchair and analyze it, but I don't sit there going, well, they should have done this instead. Most times I usually defend OCs,
True.
Unless your name's Mark Whipple.
I was going to say, especially if your name's Mark Whipple.
Some of the play calling in other situations I thought was maybe a little bit cause for revisiting. Some of those 4th down and short play calls I didn't care for necessarily. Again, not based on the concept, more just the overall area of the field that we're on. Trying to run into the boundary, that short side on some of those RPOs with the H-back sliding underneath, either in motion or just on a flat route. Those require space, and running them into a condensed area, I mean, it sounds cliche. It sounds like Lee Corso on NCAA football 2005, but, that sideline's a 12th defender. It kind of shortens things up there. But at the same time, we were getting some good push in the run game. So it makes sense why we were kind of basing those situational play calls off of one of our best run plays that we had in that game. We were running duo, just getting double teams on the defensive tackles on the line of scrimmage, and we were getting some good displacement. I mean, the offensive line has actually been playing decent the past few games.
Especially considering the patchwork nature of it. I want to talk about the rushing game. You take away the yards that were Nebraska ran for 183 yards on Saturday.
I just think if we would have ran the damn ball, 188 yards.
Right, and a touchdown. Average 4.6 yards per carry. I can tip my hat to that. That's a solid effort. Emma Johnson, 84. I always look at the gain, not the net. 84 yards. Oddly enough, Sims and Purdy both had 33. Nate Borkercher with 11. Josh Fleet on the fake punt, which we haven't really even talked about that.
No.
That's a ballsy call right there. Because
first possession.
I think, that's what it was. And you're in your own territory. If that goes sideways, you're setting a very different tone. But it was really, really perfectly executed. And I always find that those can go very poorly, very quickly. But
I like the fake punt call. You steal a possession there.
So the phrase that the announcers like to use at that time is stealing possessions. But then you have
who also like to steal possessions?
Oh God,
Scott Frost, Dublin, Ireland, August 2022. Onside kicks.
But he was stealing them from Nebraska.
Yeah, he stole a lot of money too. Oh,
not as much as Jimbo Fisher.
What?
So not as much as Jimbo Fisher.
Oh, Jimbo. Okay, real quick as an aside, that 2017 coaching carousel class, I'm pretty sure everyone's pretty much been fired. Scott Frost, fired. Herm Edwards, fired. Dan Mullen, fired. Jimbo Fisher, fired. Willie Taggart left for Florida State that year, fired already.
Fired very quickly, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he was fired by 29. Yeah,
that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, he had 2 years. He's 2 years now. But, I remember thinking that year, holy shit, this is going to shake up college football, everybody. You have teams that are all of a sudden better, all this stuff. Nebraska A&M for a national championship, at some point. No,
not so fast, my friend.
Everybody got fired. Everybody's doing well financially.
Yeah. Oh,
here's the thing. $76 million.
the Jimbo Fisher situation makes me glad that Scott Frost underperformed to the extent that he did, because if he would have got a lofty extension, 3 years in or something like that, and if he would have had like a 9-win season, and there's like, oh yeah, and then before he fell off the cliff,
Yeah.
then Nebraska could have very well been in a similar situation.
Yeah, our futures would have been mortgaged as a program.
Yeah. So again,
I do want to say I really
blessings.
liked wrinkle that Satterfield had on the Janirin Bonner touchdown run. A little wing T action there. Well,
Tell us about it.
Jet sweep. I liked it. That was a nice way to get the fullback involved in the running game in a little non-traditional sense. And that's something that I actually have been saying for the past 3 weeks now that we need to incorporate more. Like, I've gone full run the damn ball fullback guy, the heel turn is complete from 2016 to now.
RTFB, run the damn fullback.
Against Purdue, like, we were trying to run the clock out and we were just, stumbling and bumbling around the field and fumbling. I kept saying to my brother-in-law, I was watching the game with him, I'm like, just get in the eye and run some, traditional tailback handoff run game. If you're insistent on running belly option, run the belly trap off of it. Just get it involved with those quick hitters just to soften up the belly of the defense. And then again against Michigan State, there were a few opportunities. The way that Michigan State was aligned, kind of in a outlaw alignment with 2-3 techniques lined up over the guards. So there's 2 A-gap bubbles there on either side of the center. And then again against Maryland, we just need to generate something, with how anemic our offense was. And I really like that idea there at the goal line where space is compressed to kind of go with a non-traditional play call. So I think that's something that we should probably look for. And it sounds antithetical to kind of what most people want to see from our offense, but I think these last 2 games, we should probably start looking for plays that kind of get defenses moving one way and then coming back the other. So, plays like that, or, that little no motion jet sweep to Bonner, the end around we've been doing to Jalen Lloyd, which is going to pop eventually. I mean, that thing is close every time. One more block and it's gone. And then you're looking at, I think what you'll also see is some bootlegs, maybe some sprint out passes, and then honestly, probably a throwback screen. Fake the run one way or fake the option one way, come back the other on a delayed screen to the backside tight end. We're going to have to do something to kind of keep things safe. Still have that element of the passing game, but a little bit more controlled and safe. But I say that now, and then watch, we'll run like a throwback screen to the tight end against Wisconsin, and it'll bounce off an offensive lineman's helmet straight up into the air, and somebody will come down, pick it off, and run it back for 6. Can you tell that I'm a tortured soul Husker fan, Greg?
Yep. Is it safe to say that your cup of Kool-Aid has runneth out?
I'm still not the Kool-Aid hasn't run out.
You still believe? You still believe?
And I'm still 100. I'm 100% dug in, believing in this staff. I love it. This is a damn good staff.
You just more pragmatic and realist rather than optimistic. I just
feel like a pinata right now as a Husker fan. Like we've just gotten the shit beat out of us. It's like at some point we need something to go well. Which I want to bring that up. This is a natural segue. Did you answer the door for? Just bear with me here. Did you answer the door for trick-or-treaters the night of Halloween?
No, I took my oldest trick-or-treating.
Okay, so your wife stayed and answered the door?
No, we didn't have the light on.
Okay. So you're just gonna have to bear with me. Okay,
I'm a bad person.
All right, just bear with me. This is gonna be hypothetical then. All right. You're sitting there. Let's say your wife took your oldest trick-or-treating, and you're sitting there at home, maybe watching, Tuesday night Maction that night, and the doorbell rings, and it's the ghost of Husker football yet to come.
Oh, crap.
And you're like, what do you want? You gonna say trick or treat? What's going on here? And they just, they just communicate to you somehow that we will finish 7-5. By November 30th, we will be 7-5. But you had to choose how you get to 7-5. Do you beat Michigan State and Maryland and you're 7-3 with 2 to go and you drop to Wisconsin and Iowa? Or do you go 5-5 and then you beat Wisconsin and then you beat Iowa? And they say you get to choose, Greg. Which do you take?
I
know which one I take.
I know exactly which one to take. I just don't know. I feel better about beating Wisconsin and Iowa because I'm carrying mighty momentum into the bowl season.
And we finally get to talk shit to Wisconsin fans.
Well, not only that, but those are also division games. Yep. So that might put us in prime spot for the conference championship.
Crazy thing is, we're still right in the thick of this thing.
Have you been following? I can't remember who creates it, but it's like
7-way tie.
Yeah.
God. Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure that not a whole lot has changed on that either.
No, it's like Iowa's 5-2, we're 3-4, Wisconsin's 3-4, Northwestern's 3-4. It's like it's an utter catastrophe. But like we control our own destiny. If we win the next two, Ohio State has to beat Minnesota on Saturday. Yeah, it'll happen. Illinois has to beat Iowa. Illinois switched quarterbacks.
They had to.
They had to. And he threw for what, 500 yards?
500 yards. They won in overtime.
Yeah. I mean, like
against Indiana.
I mean, for fuck's sake. Like, I like Illinois, please. Like Brett Bielema, I will never utter a bad word about you ever again if you beat Iowa.
I will. And you will too.
I'll renege
admit
it. Yeah. Next year, I'll be like, hey, Bert, thanks for your last year, but fuck off, pal. Go get blocked by again.
Oh, killing me.
It's what he's from Prophetstown, Illinois.
That means nothing to me.
No, Prophetstown's you're a Southern Illinois guy.
I'm gonna see exactly how far it is from my house.
You want to go light a bag of dog crap on fire?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it at the house he no longer lives at in Prophetstown. No, I might do it at Town Square. This is for Bert. No, computer's taking too long. We're gonna abandon those plans of
because you totally froze. I could hear the audio, but you were just.
That's fine.
Froze again.
That's me. I swear. I'm sorry.
I thought it was maybe just my crappy internet.
No, it's a joint effort around here. We do things. We win as a team. We lose as a team. We cry as a team.
Yes, we do. But if we were to go 7-5, but it was beating Wisconsin and Iowa to get to 7-5,
I don't think there's a Husker fan who wouldn't take that.
Satisfying.
Yeah,
I mean, like we beat Wisconsin this Saturday. I'm not shitting you, Greg. I got a Friendsgiving to go to Sunday morning. I may not go to bed Saturday night. I mean, like, I might be drinking Coors Banquets and howling at the moon at 3:30 in the morning. Because I've said this probably in every podcast we've ever done. We have not beat Wisconsin since the iPhone 4 was brand new. We have to make it stop.
You know what? No, this is, you got to stop. You got to stop making these references of sadness because it's
called perspective. And you know what? For too long, people were content to keep Scott Frost in place when they need a little bit of perspective to see how far things had fallen.
It's we haven't beat Wisconsin since the iPhone 4 was new, or we haven't been to a bowl game since the Obama administration. At some point,
haven't won a conference championship since I was in third grade.
Haven't won a national championship since the Clinton years.
Hey, I'm a social studies guy, Greg.
But it just hurts.
Well, you know what? Sometimes the truth does hurt because it should inspire you to make changes.
Does it set you free also?
It should.
Okay.
No. We need to find a way to get it done on Saturday. And you're looking at a Wisconsin team that looks like they are in the life cycle of where we were after we fired Solich. It sounds like there are some serious problems within the program. There's still guys on the team that wanted Jim Leonard to be the head coach. There's guys that aren't buying into what Fickle's doing. Tanner Mordecai still has a hand injury. Braylon Allen played all of 3 snaps last year, or had 3 carries last week. And they got absolutely mollywopped by a team that everybody picked to finish last in the division.
Northwestern.
And Northwestern's actually playing some pretty good ball, If we had Ben Bryant at quarterback, we'd probably be 8-2. So
dangerous.
Yeah.
No, let's talk about real quick. Let's get fans of the show up to speed on Wisconsin. Wisconsin opened the season with a 38-17 win against Buffalo. You think, a Wisconsin team of old would have probably doubled that score. They lost to Washington State 31-22. They beat Georgia Southern 35-14. Opened up conference play against Purdue, won that one 38-17. Probably, honestly, their best conference game. They beat Rutgers the following week, October 7th, 24-13. Then a loss to Iowa, 15-6. Thank you, Brian Ferentz. They beat Illinois 25-21, lost to Ohio State, lost to Indiana, lost to Northwestern. This is not look, you want to talk about getting them, if this is me being my usual negative self, but if you want to get a win against Wisconsin at Camp Randall, you got to do it this year, because they, like Nebraska, will get better.
And I was about to say, just like, it's, if you want to get Nebraska, you better get us now, and I think we already might be past that time to get us, even though we keep stepping on our own dicks.
That is the
language.
I think that's the most frustrating part, is that when you look at Michigan State and you look at Maryland. I'm even say Minnesota. We didn't lose as much as we beat ourselves.
Oh yeah,
maybe that's not giving the opponents enough credit, or but those games are 100% winnable. Colorado, again, the defense did all that they could until they just ran out of gas. And I'm not worried about Michigan. Again, Michigan's the outlier.
Yeah, exactly. Michigan's the outlier, and Michigan, Ohio State, they're going to continue to be the outliers until we rise up and do something about it. Right. But here's the thing, that, not to put the cart too far before the horse, but, we were talking about the, teams had better get us now, because it might be a while before they're able to again. Well, we're already showing we're ahead of schedule, in my opinion, in the Matt Rule era. The fact that he's eked out 5 wins with this roster, if we finished 5-7, I still think that, like, I say this a little bit, tongue in cheek, but it still drives home the point of how good he's been. If we finished 5-7, I still think he should be up for Coach of the Year awards. If we go 7-5, I think he will be. But, like, the whole thing about it is all these injuries, and yet we're still finding ways to be competitive and win games. Even though the past 2 weeks haven't gone the way we wanted them to. But next year, let's think about how you'll have, we addressed the quarterback situation over the offseason. You'll have Gabe Ervin back. You'll have Ramir Johnson back. You'll have Marcus Washington back. You'll have an offensive line that has another year of experience. You'll have defenders with year 2 in Tony White's scheme. And you'll upgrade at some positions too. So there's a chance that the time for other teams to get us will be over. And there's a chance, like, looking at the next year's schedule, you could think about starting 7-0, heading into Ohio State on October 26th.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm serious. I'm like, and the other thing, you talk about, the laws of the universe don't apply to Husker football. But at some point, there has to be a regression to the mean, and things go the other way. in terms of just the sheer dumb luck, the turnovers, all that stuff. And so I think that next year sets up really nicely for us to have a good non-conference schedule where people can get on solid footing, develop, get some confidence before we hit conference play. But yeah, back to this week, Wisconsin. If there's ever a time to get them, it's this week. Get it done. I mean, last year we should have got it done if Mark Whipple doesn't throw 3 straight times with about 90 seconds left.
Yeah. I think what we could really be seeing.
If the FBI was listening to the show, they'd probably be like, do we need to warn Mark Whipple that there's somebody out there that has a big problem with him?
We don't. Honestly, what I see is, and this is not the best comparison, but if you go back to 2015, 2016, Mike Riley's first year, I think it was week 2, Nebraska loses by a Hail Mary from BYU. I think it was the second week. Might have been first week.
First.
Thank you. But and that became, and I'm not saying that it was an excuse or anything like that, but that was the kind of way the season went. A lot, if just one thing went this, different, then we could have, turned some of those losses into wins. And this is not starting the whole one score loss, diatribe again. But in 2016, a lot of those, funny bouncing balls went that way. So what and that happened in a year. But that was not program wide. That was season to season. What we're seeing, and I think what you're trying to convey, or maybe you did, and maybe I'm muddying the waters. It's what I do. But I think what we're seeing is we are going to start. The tides will turn. The luck will shift. However you want to say it. I don't disagree that we're ahead of schedule because we have outperformed any college team, that first year college team under Matt Rule, or any college team under Matt Rule's first year. That's what I'm trying to say. That had, I think, 1 or 2 losses, and everybody said, "Oh, after we lost to Minnesota, after we lost to Colorado, this is going to be the same old Matt Rule, and we're going to have 1 or 2 wins, and that's going to be it." And we're sitting 5-5. Now, I'm pretty happy at 5-5 in Matt Rule's first year. I'd like 7-5. I'd settle for 6-6.
Yeah, I would too. I would too.
But I like a bowl game. I like and I'm not going to be greedy. I don't necessarily need the bowl game to be a win. I just want another 2 weeks of practice for these guys. Maybe the opportunity to get healthy and the opportunity to continue to figure things out in this system. I mean, look, we're right on pace. This is going to stop. I'm not trying to compare Matt Rule to Mike Riley. Please, if you're listening to this, don't draw these assumptions. But we're 5-5 now. Mike Riley's first year, we were 6-7. We were 3-5 in the Big Ten. We're 3-4 right now. So you had the opportunity to at least do as well. We're better than we were under Scott Frost in his first year. We're really about as good as we were in Bill Callahan's first year. The only first-year head coach that had a better record this century was Bo Pelini, but that was 2008, and that was largely on the backs of Bill Callahan's recruits when we went 9-4 that year. Frank Solich went 9-4, again, coming off of a national championship. You wouldn't expect a big drop-off to have a sub-500 team. So there is a lot going Nebraska's way.
Yep, ton.
But we as a fan base have, I feel, ran out of patience because we've been waiting for 20 years.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if anyone were to be like, "Oh, same old shit, different day," Bob from Brainerd, same old shit, different day. It's like, well, it's not the staff's fault. It's just it's our fault as a fan base. The lack of patience, because we've seen it all before. But no, there's tangible growth. I mean, how many times do you see a coordinator step in his first year at Nebraska and put together a elite unit like
Tony White?
Yeah. I mean, like, it doesn't happen. No. It hardly has ever happened here. And so,
man, I just can we go on that real quick, because I want to let's see here. So again, somewhere on the stats people, they have Ben Scott. There are 266s on the squad, and they have Ben Scott as recording a tackle. I don't think he did. Maybe he did.
I got an interception.
Anthony Grant had a tackle, so anything's possible. But Javin Wright, Omar Brown, Nash Hutmaker, Makai Gabayer, Jamari Butler. Bear. These are all guys who are making an impact who we did not hear from last year.
Exactly. Mikhail Bear.
Thank you.
I had basically just wrote him off last year. I just figured, I was like, oh, he's never going to do anything here. Boom.
And he was, I believe he was.
They turned John Bullock into one hell of a football player.
Yeah.
Like, John Bullock is a damn good football player.
And here's the thing: as much as good as Luke Gifford was, there's a chance Isaac Gifford's better.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Ty
Isaac
Robinson.
Gifford reminds me of one of those safeties you would have seen at Iowa that would terrorize us.
Oh, hopefully in a couple of weeks he can terrorize them.
Yeah.
We knew about Marquise Buford Jr. We're happy he's back out there.
A little rusty, but to be expected.
I'll tell you, he had 5 tackles. He had a sack. He had a beautiful sack. He had that one safety blitz that just lit up.
Yeah, the Cowboy blitz, yeah.
And he had between that and another tackle for loss. I mean, he had himself a nice stat line. Nick Henrich, Luke Reimer, these are some of the names. Malcolm Hartzog came on last year. I mean, these are some of the guys who were names, but at the top of the stat sheet from the Maryland game is Javin Wright, who also had an interception and a forced fumble. Tony White is squeezing every bit of talent and effort that he can out of this defensive unit. And then
you got guys like James Williams emerging. Cameron Lenhart is a freshman.
Cameron Lenhart, who didn't make the stat sheet, but that's not to say he wasn't disruptive. That's not to say he wasn't putting pressure on or drawing, blocking schemes and linemen to his side. And then Prince Will, who didn't play, but
no, he was out there.
Oh, he was.
Yep,
I missed him. Sorry, P. Will. I know you're listening / watching to this, but Tony White is extracting every bit that he can and out of this, and that's why I'm so excited for the future, because I feel like if you see, recruits or portal guys are going to see what Tony White has done with this defense, and we could bring in the type of talent like the next Levante David, who, by the way, is quietly having an NFL Hall of Fame career.
Sorry, I got distracted there for a split second. Will you repeat that last part? I'm an asshole. I know, Greg.
I said, look,
I followed all the way up until when you said Levante David, I was like, what's the comparison?
I'm just saying you could bring in talent that could be the next Levante David, who's quietly having himself like an NFL Hall of Fame career.
Exactly. And guys like Levante who just need that development from being in a good scheme, being on a defensive-minded football team. I think it's going to be interesting to see when Tony White has elite talent to work with, because he's already squeezed blood out of a rock right now.
Whoa. Are you saying that Phelan Sanford is not elite?
No, I mean, they turned him into a damn good football player, but
They did. And again, I have a feeling, look, if I were 20-ish plus years younger and had 2 good knees and a decent back, this defensive unit or this defensive coaching staff could make this lump of garbage somewhat usable, even as like a tackling dummy.
So
So if
they'd be
they
like,
could do that with
we
me,
got Greg, the best tackling dummy in America.
tackling few.
Tackling.
So if they can do that with me, imagine what they could do with a 4-star kid or a 5-heart kid. There you go. Plug the other show. Who has more than a speck of athletic ability. I'm 6 foot nothing and 200 and something. But like Rudy, I also have not a speck of athletic ability.
It's okay.
So,
it's okay.
So anything's possible. Again, the off season, I think priority, as much as recruiting is, lock up Tony White, put him in some contract that
he cannot get out of.
Right. Maybe he's coaching for his next gig or next contract, something like that. Maybe we're gonna pull a Jimbo Fisher and open up or back up the money truck and I don't know. But whatever he's doing, he needs to keep doing it. He needs to stay hungry. I'm not worried about that. As we wrap up here, I had a meeting today with a client of mine who's a young kid, upper 20s, played some college baseball at a smaller divisional school. And I said, man, you might have a better. I said, I'm just curious about this. I told him I'm a Husker fan. And I said, look, we had this home game this past week. It didn't go our way. Sometimes they don't, more recently than not. I said, well, we had a lot of recruits there. I said, if you're a recruit, if you're an 18-year-old kid on the sideline watching that, do you care about wins? Or do you want to go where oh man, I could make an impact right now. I could certainly get a lot of playing time starting next year. And he's like, I think that there are a lot of kids who would be like, yeah, I want to play right away. He said, but mostly they just want to go to win.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We got to win first, know.
So
win first, and it starts this Saturday.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. I was going to show off my trophy. I'm gonna show off my trophy.
Do it, man. We celebrate wins on this show.
I don't know how well that could be visible.
Best dad ever.
So,
that's
number one.
That's an amazing accomplishment, Greg, because you got probably about 2 billion other people in competition with you.
Hey, if you're
hats off, man, salute. You are the best out of 2 billion.
If you are a dad watching this and you say, wait a minute, I thought I was the best. Well, maybe you are to your children. But just like I'm my parents' favorite son, I'm also my kid's favorite dad. So by process of elimination. Anyway, Wisconsin. So we have quite a quarterback ordeal heading into Camp Randall, and it's prime time. It's going to be jumping around and crazy and all the college town revelry you would expect. First of all, do we know the extent of Heinrich's injury? Is he going to be around for Saturday? And if not, we have to go with Jeff Sims, right?
It sounds like it's just kind of depends on where we're going. I know Rule said Harburg has an ankle issue. Sims is healthy. He said Chuba's Chuba. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Sometimes.
I've heard of both.
That he was a little more sore after the game. So I think it's just kind of, they're evaluating all options.
What does
what?
Have you been to Wisconsin?
I have not. I made a pledge to myself long ago that I will not make that trip until we have a team that can beat them, because I'm not going to go up there and put up with that asshole behavior to see us get, taken behind the woodshed. But here's the thing, Greg.
All we have are yes, sir.
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, all we have is anecdotal evidence about the. I think there's a lag or something that I try to talk because you're quiet, but it's because you froze. And anyway, I said, all we have is. God damn it. All right. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to point. All we have is like anecdotal evidence about the atmosphere there in Wisconsin. I know it's going to be electric. I know that they're desperate for their football team to get a victory. Without getting to the prediction yet, what can Nebraska do to come out of Camp Randall with a win?
Don't turn the football over.
It should be that simple, right?
It is that simple. Run the football. Take your shots in the passing game where you can. Look to steal a possession, generate some turnovers, play a penalty-free game. Just don't turn the football over yourself. Don't give them any more help than, they don't need it,
No.
Play clean football. That's all this thing comes down to. Last year, had we played a little bit cleaner on some of our issues, not so much in turnovers in that game, but play calling, situational football. We beat Wisconsin. I mean, if we would have beat Wisconsin then beat Iowa and we finished the year 5-7 last year, we'd really been going like, well, fuck. Like if we could have gotten Minnesota, we would have gone to a bowl,
Right.
Something like that. But like right now, nothing that they do is overly complicated. This plays really well into what we do defensively. I know that Tony White's going to have a good game plan. I hope that we get a little bit more aggressive than we have been against Michigan State and Maryland. And Rule even pointed that out. And I think I mentioned last week that I thought Tony White called the defense a little conservatively. What Rule said was, we're at our best when Tony's dialing up zero blitzes, cover zero, and, a lot of blitzes getting after their quarterback. And I think in a game where, it's not the traditional Wisconsin, line up in the eye and run it down your throat like they have been, but this is not a good offense. And I think that we need to make our presence felt defensively. And I think we need to dominate this game and leave no pretense out there about who is in control of it. So I think that if we can just control the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that if we can really blanket their receivers in coverage, which I don't think that they're having that much success with their transition to more of an air raid offense, this is the year to get it done. Now, what I said earlier, offensively, I think that you'll see us maybe get a little bit more creative in how we opt to move the football, especially, maybe a little more horizontal movement to displace defenders, get them moving with a sense of misdirection to open up the run game, take your shots in the passing game. I think that Chubba Purdy gives us more of an opportunity if he were to start with quick game, throwing slants, stuff over the middle. But yeah, just play clean football, got to win the field position battle. That was one of the things that we got our ass kicked the past 2 weeks in that field position battle. We're starting on our own fucking 10 and other teams are starting on their own 40. So take care of the football, have good field position, win that battle, convert in short yards, play smart situational football. That's all this comes down to. Tune out the noise, jump around. Yeah, it's fucking loud.
But you know what? It stops. It stops by the time you get back on the field.
Exactly.
And get into the huddle.
So that being said, Nebraska 17, Wisconsin 7.
I definitely made a mistake last week when I said something on the 5 Heart, my prediction being like Nebraska 31 and Maryland 10 or 13 or something like that. Everybody in the chatter fields, if you will, were saying this team's going to score 31 points. I was like, anything's possible.
17 to 7.
I like it. No, what a way to get him to the Thanksgiving holiday with a little bit of humble pie.
Yep. And then you know what comes after that? A 1-game roll of the dice,
where Nebraska wins 3-2 on Black Friday.
Fuck yeah!
And you know what? We would take it, celebrate it, and run to the postseason for the first time since the
Obama administration. And I would get a personalized Nebraska license plate that just says the number 3, the word 2, or 3, 2,
dash.
2.
I would say 3, the written out, spelled out, the word dash 2.
3-2. Oh, I would troll the ever living shit out of Iowa fans forever.
It'd be glorious. Maybe someday.
You know, I would also love for us to beat them, like the old Oklahoma joke from 2009. What time is it in Norman? 10-3. I would love for a score like that. Like, what time is it in Iowa City? 10-7.
10-2.
10-5.
Oh God. So
no. What would be better than 3-2? 5-2.
And you know what? Our defense could get that done.
Yeah, they really could. Yeah,
they were close. They have been close. I've said it before. I say it sadly almost every game on Twitter or X or whatever. I said this defense deserves better.
They do.
And as we've also said here and elsewhere, this team will only go as far as the defense can carry them. But it's time for the offense to pull a little bit of their own weight. And like you said, keeping a clean sheet. You know, the penalties have really come down. If we could clean up the turnovers, this is a damn good ball team.
But one thing I want to say as well, the Heinrich Harburg experience sounds like it should be an East German pop album from the 1960s.
East German that would have been behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'm a history guy, Greg.
Yeah, but that's Western Germany. West Berlin sounds more realistic.
All right. The Heinrich Harburg experience sounds like a nightclub in West Berlin.
Thank you. Because as we all know, in the Soviet Union, there was no music. There was no joy.
Just had like the weird sounding. You know the kind of music I'm talking about. It's hard to describe.
Oh, I know.
Very echoey, loud.
All right, my friend. Excellent show. Thank you so much for all your time and effort and expertise and wisdom. And for all of you who have made it through either the video or the audio version, we can tell you, because we saw it here, the audio version is going to move a lot more smoothly. The video version will just freeze randomly. You'll still be able to hear us, but
like this.
We won't necessarily move. Except for you can hear my anyway. So that's it for this episode of the Coronation Overreaction. Next week we'll be in better moods because we'll be bowl eligible, and then we'll have a short week because it's Iowa Hate Week, and we'll be ready. So for my good friend and my broadcast buddy, Mr. Hoshroyder, I'm Greg Mahochko. This is Coronation's Overreaction, and we remind you to go Big Red and
win the damn game.